What effect would a crime as big as the Idaho 4 have on a town as small as Moscow, Idaho? Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky. And today I want to talk about how a well publicized crime, as well as a crime that's getting international exposure, would affect a small town like Moscow, Idaho, where these crimes occurred, as well as the University of Idaho, where these victims were students. Now, I'm absolutely not saying that the University of Idaho had anything to do with the Idaho 4 crimes. I don't necessarily agree with how the university handled some of the things during the course of the investigation, and I don't agree with some of the people who are associated with the University of Idaho. But I've never believed that the university had anything to do with the Idaho 4 crimes. That being said, with a crime this big that's getting international exposure, it's bound to draw a lot of negative attention. And that's going to affect the University of Idaho, which in turn is going to affect the small town of Moscow. Let's start out by talking about some numbers real quick. The town of Moscow, Idaho has a population of just over 26,000 people. So that's pretty small. To put that into perspective, Husky Stadium, where the Washington Huskies play football, can hold over 70,000 people, which means that the entire town of Moscow could fit inside Husky Stadium 2.5 times. The entire town. Now, out of these 26,000 people that live in Moscow, Idaho, over half of them attend the University of Idaho. Many of the people who live in Moscow, Idaho, also work at the university. So needless to say, the University of Idaho is crucial to the financial stability of this small town. If attendance begins to drop or they begin losing students at the University of Idaho, it's not just going to affect the university. It's going to drastically affect the economy of Moscow. We all know that there's a relentless gag order in the Idaho 4 case. But regardless of that gag order, people are still going to talk. Parents are going to talk. Students are going to talk. Alumni. A lot of people are still going to talk about this crime. It's a very unique crime. And I mean, why else would we all be following it so closely if it wasn't unique? Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, what about Ted Bundy? And I agree. There's a lot of similarities between Ted Bundy and the Idaho 4 crimes. But we also have to remember that Ted Bundy committed his crimes in the 70s, 50 years ago. There were no cell phones or Wi-Fi security cameras or up-to-the-minute news. It was a lot easier for Ted Bundy to get around compared to someone who would be committing a crime in today's world. So, I mean, everybody's holding a cell phone in their hand or in their pocket that will take 4K video and also take photographs. They have the ability to contact people within seconds. So it's a little bit different. In today's day and age, it's a lot harder for someone to get around without being noticed. So I'm getting off track. Let's get back to the effects of the University of Idaho. This was 4 young people whose lives were taken in a very personal manner. And by personal, I mean carried out with anger and aggression. Technically, these crimes did not occur on the campus of the University of Idaho. They happened in a neighborhood that was off campus. But these students who were the victims of the Idaho 4 crimes attended the university. They lived among a lot of other students who attended the university. And this house, the King Road House, was known as an off campus sorority house, basically. So, regardless of how many times that the university spokesperson or President Scott Green or the University of Idaho police reiterated that this was an off campus incident, President Scott Green knew that these crimes were going to be associated with the University of Idaho. Everyone associated with the University of Idaho continued to reiterate that this was an off campus incident. But you also notice that President Scott Green was close by at all times. The University of Idaho had their hands in this investigation every step of the way, in my opinion. So here's a question for you. Do you think that the University of Idaho had a strong influence on the Idaho 4 investigation? Let me know what you think in the comments. In my opinion, the university played a big part in how this investigation was conducted. Now, every year, colleges try to lure students to their college. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of marketing, a lot of branding, and image is everything when you're trying to market a university. Every year, seniors, probably juniors, and sophomores in high school already begin receiving hundreds of ads from universities across the country, trying to lure them to their universities. Now, colleges are institutions of learning, but make no mistake, they're also big business. If I'm a parent who's sending my student off to college, and the University of Idaho is on my kid's list of places that they might want to attend, I would be a little concerned, knowing that they just had 4 of their students' lives brutally taken just off campus. I would be even more concerned if their police department was telling everyone, don't worry, you're just going to have to trust us. And that was the best information that they had. I think that most parents would be concerned. All of us heard the rumors that were going around about the Idaho 4 before Brian Koberger was arrested, as well as before law enforcement released the PCA. There was talk that this could have been a situation where all of these students OD'd. There was also talk about a crime of passion, which, oddly enough, the mayor actually came out and confidently stated that this was a crime of passion. So there were a lot of rumors going around. And if we were hearing these rumors, imagine what was going around that town. And eventually that would get back to potential students and parents of potential students at this university. So as students are choosing colleges, their parents are probably thinking, I don't want to send my kid off to a college that has substance abuse problems or a college that has DV issues. So this could definitely affect enrollment at the University of Idaho. It's definitely not a good look. And of course, it's not the University of Idaho's fault that these crimes happened just off of their campus. But students and parents who may be thinking about going to the University of Idaho are definitely going to take this into account. They're going to be asking, is this university a safe place? Is the Greek system a bad influence on the students who go here? Have students accidentally lost their lives? Things like that. Parents think about things like this when they're getting ready to spend tens of thousands of dollars to send their kids off to school. President Scott Green and the University of Idaho know this. They knew that they needed to start damage control immediately. And what's the best way to do that? Keep people from talking. The gag order was put into place to protect the investigation. But in my opinion, the gag order was also put in place to protect the university, to keep people from talking. The investigation is over. They've had their suspect, Bryan Kohberger, in jail for 2 years. So why are they continuing to keep everything so secret? They have their suspect. They seem very confident in this suspect, and they seem confident that they can convict Bryan Kohberger. So after 2 years, why is everything still such a secret? In my opinion, a lot of this has to do with the university rather than the investigation at this point. The university has to answer to investors, donors, and alumni who donate their money to the college. There was also a lot of rumors about the Greek system, the fraternities, and the sororities. They were put under the spotlight as well because a lot of people believed that it was a good possibility that they could have been involved in the Idaho 4 crimes. They were put under a microscope, so a lot of people learned about the accidents that happened to some of their members and some of the students of this university. And that could be a deciding factor for a parent who's going to send their student off to college at the University of Idaho. This would affect how many students might want to become members of the Greek system. And as we said about the University of Idaho, it's a business. Well, so is the Greek system. Nobody joins a fraternity or a sorority for free. It costs money and it's not cheap. So this could also affect their membership. So basically, it trickles down from the university, from university enrollment to how many students might be joining these fraternities and sororities. It basically just trickles down the mountain. If enrollment at the University of Idaho decreases, it's going to affect the economy of the entire town. If over half of the population of Moscow, Idaho attend the University of Idaho or work there, then there's not going to be as much money going around this town if there's less students. There's going to be less money being spent in stores, at restaurants, renting properties. It's going to affect the economy altogether. And I would think that the people who live in Moscow, Idaho, would be very aware of this. Without the University of Idaho, the town of Moscow would go under. Financially, it would be a disaster because the students who attend the university, as well as the faculty who works there, their dollars pay for a lot of things that happen in Moscow, Idaho. It's not just the stores. It's not just the restaurants. It's also the police department, the fire department, the local government. Anyone who works in Moscow, Idaho could be affected by a decrease in enrollment at the university. The university is key to this town. So, in my opinion, I believe that all of the higher ups in Moscow, Idaho probably know each other. It's been said many, many times by President Scott Green, by Chief Fry, and by a lot of other people who have done interviews who are associated with this town, that this is a very tight-knit community. So the Idaho 4 crimes could potentially affect everyone in this community. Small business owners, everyone could be affected by this quadruple homicide. So what would be the fastest way for the town of Moscow to kind of sweep all of this under the rug, to eliminate the concern by potential students and parents who might be on the fence about going to the University of Idaho? What would be the most efficient way to try to get this out of the public eye, to try to fix this so that they can do damage control and potentially save their image. One single suspect, one single individual who committed these crimes. And now he's in custody. So now everything's fine, right? That takes care of the idea that multiple people could have committed these crimes, that it could have possibly been students from the University of Idaho that committed these crimes. It takes care of the idea that there may be a substance abuse problem at the university and that these students aren't really beating each other up, as the rumors would suggest. One single suspect would take care of all of those problems. We have him in custody, and it's not going to happen again. Everything is safe again. Everything's back to normal. This would be the ideal situation for the University of Idaho. We have the one person who committed this crime, so there's no more danger. There was not any substance abuse problems. We caught this one person, and now we can move forward. We can destroy the house, knock it down, bury all the pieces in the ground in a secret location, and that'll be that. Out of sight, out of mind. The university came out and said that these students, they need to heal. We need to wipe this house off the face of this planet so that these students can heal. But in my opinion, this was more about protecting the image of the University of Idaho. It's not a very good look when you have a house right in the center of where all of the students live, where a quadruple homicide happened that took the lives of 4 University of Idaho students. In my opinion, this was a lot more about protecting their image than it really was about the students healing. Now, the university did receive $1 million of state money, and that $1 million was to go to pay Idaho State Police, which that didn't really make a lot of sense to me because doesn't the state of Idaho already pay the Idaho State Police? Why would they give the University of Idaho money to pay the state police? That just didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Now, that money was also to go to more shuttles, which, okay. I mean, the University of Idaho already has a shuttle system, but I guess maybe they were anticipating a lot more people that might need to be shuttled around. So, more shuttles. It was also supposed to go toward counseling for the students and staff who may need that. And to me, I can understand that. I think that that's a valuable resource to offer the students and the faculty, even though it was reported that not a lot of people used those resources. Another thing that it was supposed to go toward is additional security, which that's completely understandable. If I'm a parent of a student at the University of Idaho, I would feel a lot better if there was more security. So that I can understand, and I can see how that would benefit the students and the faculty. You know, just the presence of more security would make sense during this time. So I understood that part of it. And then, of course, there was the security plan and consultants. Now, I think that a lot of this money went to the consultants, which usually you never really know where that money's going. It's just going to people who are consulting about what to do next. But oddly enough, that's usually where all of the money goes. So you always got to keep an eye on these consultants because they're the ones that usually get the main chunk of all of the money. So the Idaho 4 crimes would have a major effect on the University of Idaho, which in turn could have a financial impact on the entire town of Moscow. And I believe that President Scott Green was very aware of this. I believe that he was on damage control immediately, that he was immediately trying to protect the image of the university. I also believe that the people of Moscow, Idaho are very aware that this university carries this small town financially. So they all know as well that less enrollment means less money being spent in their town. And it could very well affect their economy negatively. I think that the image of this university was extremely important for law enforcement and local government to try to protect. So, in my opinion, it's a very good possibility that that could have affected the investigation and how this investigation was handled. Like I said, President Scott Green and everyone associated with the University of Idaho made it a point to reiterate that this was an off campus incident. Even the University of Idaho police said in interviews that they didn't really have a lot to do with this investigation because this was not involving the University of Idaho. This was off campus. This did not happen on campus property. So, in my opinion, they knew that the Idaho 4 crimes were going to have a negative effect on this university as well as this town. And I believe that throughout this investigation, law enforcement and investigators were also trying to protect the image of this university because, like I said, the University of Idaho is crucial to this small town. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope that you all had a very happy Thanksgiving. And if you liked my video, hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. I really do appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.